We're talking to Alex Rowe. He is a trustee of AES, which is Autism Early Support. Alex, tell me about the support for families, and more importantly, you've gone through this process and you're going through this process with AES, and then you became a trustee. So what is that personal story that you found and the support that you found as a family?
AES was an absolute beacon for us. Early on, our son Elliot, who at the time was 2.5 when we first heard of AES, although they were called Puzzle Centre in those days, which is what some of your other listeners may still remember it as. At that point, Elliot had been to a nursery, a mainstream nursery, and hats off to them. They had done everything that they could to support him as it emerged that he had quite a significant need, both with autism spectrum disorder and also an accompanying learning difficulty, which is not an unusual connection. But with Elliot, it manifested itself also as a very intense anxiety, and he would experience almost kind of an animalistic, internal, visceral rejection and distress of settings, nursery settings, where there were young children. And I think it was just at a time where he was opening his eyes a little bit to his environment, and it was a scary place for him. Most people with autism spectrum disorder have some kind of sensory impairment. It is in many ways a sensory disorder, and the best analogy I can give would be to say that for Elliot, going to nursery or going just for a walk to the local post office or something, perhaps could be for us as it would be to go to a supermarket in a foreign country where we don't understand any of the labels, the fire alarm's going off, all the aisles are narrow, the place is shaking, and we've been drugged. It's an unpleasant experience, and basically it led to Elliot being scared, frightened of going to nursery. Then we heard about AES and the very unique, bespoke approach that they have with small cohort sizes, a very small number of children with a lot of specialist support, occupational therapists, speech language therapists on site, and very gradually but positively over the course of the following year to year and a half, Elliot went from being a child that could not be around other children to a child that was ready for school.
Wow, that is great. And did you feel you obviously, I mean, at those times you must be going, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? How am I going to live? How do I get, what support do I have? Did you feel completely relieved? And are you still finding that AES is someone you can turn to for those kinds of levels of support? Because things must come up every now and then. You go, what are we doing wrong? Or what are we doing? Is that the kind of place that AES is?
Yeah, well, AES has something that's quite unique in that it has a nursery, which is a specialist nursery for the kids up until school age and a little bit older, just to account for those children who aren't ready to go to school at what is in the UK a really quite a young school age, a young compulsory school age, particularly when you look across at our partners in Europe, where they maybe don't start until they're 7. So AES supports children in their nursery until 5, but actually also has an outreach service, which we have taken advantage of, and which is actually our first introduction to AES. That was how we first got some support in the home, trying to understand what we could do to support Elliot, to make his environment a bit better, to work towards him being able to go to some kind of setting in person. yeah, we do often, well, we do keep in touch with the guys at AES, although Elliot is now in a very well supported special school in Northampton called Billingbrook, and they're amazing there. So I would say that the last really strong influence that AES had, the last injection of support on a large scale, was probably the transition to school, and they did that fantastically. There was a really amazing cooperation, and that's enabled Elliot to pick up at school pretty much where he left off from AES.
So we're talking about early autism support, and Alex Rowe's with us. He's a trustee. A parent is listening now, a grandparent is listening right now and saying, I think my child might be autistic. What sort of the route that you took that maybe had to be able to help them, or maybe what was the better thing for them to do right now to kind of get that support as a parent?
Yeah, it's difficult, and it does vary by postcode, and there are different setups not only around the country but even just within counties. But what we learned from our experience is that if you've got a hunch, a really strong gut feeling that something isn't quite right, and you know your child, you're probably onto something. And it's not necessarily that you can rely entirely on bouncing those concerns off the people around you, because it's a very difficult thing for a grandparent to say, I think there's something wrong with your child. So you might actually get a reassurance masking your problem. But what I would say is that awareness of autism spectrum disorder has improved. It's improved a lot over the last few years. There have been television programs like The A Word, which have brought about an awareness that perhaps wasn't there very long ago. So I would say go to the health visitor, or whatever is your first point of concern, and ask for a referral. And you know, the main advice that I could give from our experience was to become early aware that there's a difficulty to support as early as possible. And if you don't get a diagnosis, or if you were if it was a red herring, then fine, you've not done anything wrong. But if you were right, then you have done something amazing by starting that intervention while the brain is so plastic.
Brilliant. Right, we're talking to Alex Rowe. He is a trustee of Autism Early Support. You can find out more information at autismearlysupport.org.uk. Alex, come back tomorrow. We're going to talk about the support that they give into schools and to practitioners and to nurseries. Is that all right?
Absolutely. Yeah.